What's up, everyone? Alex Rosman here, and welcome to Rosman Radio, the social first podcast where founders and industry leaders stop pretending everything's amazing and they tell the real stories, the wins, the failures, the why did I even start this moments, all of it. Most importantly, we break down the marketing strategies that are actually working for them today, not the ones some guru made up in a hotel conference room in 2016. So if you want real-world growth strategies told by the ones who have scaled multi-million-dollar brands, just listen.
Welcome back to Rosman Radio, where we talk to founders, marketers, and creative thinkers shaping the future of business. I'm Rob Nichols, Director of Strategy at Rosman Media. Today, we're talking about an incubator model that's rewriting the rules of how beverage brands are born. Pilot Project Brewing, based in Chicago, Milwaukee, acts as part brewery, part accelerator, and part creative lab, helping launch new craft beverage brands from idea to distribution. My guest today, Dan Abel, co-founder and CEO of Pilot Project, started in music before moving into tech and marketing, eventually applying those lessons learned to the creative marketplaces in the world of craft brewing. So Dan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here today.
Nice. Well, I mean, your path to Pilot Project is a really kind of unique one. You started in the music industry. Walk me through kind of how that background of yours in that industry has helped shape Pilot.
For sure, yeah. So, born and raised in the West, Minneapolis specifically, went to school at the University of Wisconsin, got a marketing and economics degree. But of the many cliches in my life, and much to my parents' chagrin, I left school, moved to LA to pursue a career in music. One of the really cool things about the music industry is how well it invests in its creatives. It knows that without artists, there is no music. And so in moving out to LA, I had a whole host of resources available to me. If I wanted to record an album, I went to a studio. I didn't have to build my own. Right? I wanted to syndicate my record to radio stations. I didn't have to go knocking on doors nationwide, rather than with a record label, and so on and so forth. There's some foreshadowing to how this applies to Pilot Project, but what was just fascinating going through that entire experience is just learning truly about when you invest in creatives, you build infrastructure around creatives, you allow the industry to not just flourish, financially, but from innovation and diversity and all the really cool things that actually allow any one industry to grow. Fast forward quickly, that playing music was probably not the path for me, but I pivoted to the business side of the music industry. Found myself at a talent agency and found myself at Google, specifically working on the YouTube platform. One of the first jobs I had at Google, which was really fun, was curating the homepage. Believe it or not, it didn't used to be algorithmically driven. So I would get up, at 3 a.m. in the morning, Pacific time, and jump on with our London-based agency and help select the videos that were on the homepage to be seen by millions every day. I became the CMO of a company after a stint in San Francisco and New York. I moved to Chicago and joined a company here called Reverb. Reverb is like eBay, but for musicians. It's another business that's just focused on decentralizing, taking some of the power away from the big box retailers selling musical instruments and giving it to mom and pop shops to be able to sell on an equal playing field online. Why am I saying all of this? Because I've always been involved in businesses that are giving power to the people, the brands, the ideas that are helping to shape the future of the industry. When Reverb was sold to Etsy, I took that opportunity to pivot, having lived in all of these cultural epicenters of LA, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, being exposed to the culinary scenes, the beer, the beverage, the wine. I had grown fascinated. I picked up the hobby of home brewing. My wife and I just had our first daughter, and I couldn't really play guitar inside the house anymore. And so home brewing was a nice, way to hang out and chill with my buddies, but it was also one of my first true exposures to the simplicity, but also the beauty of the brewing process. One thing I want to do next, discovered that, hey, this is a really creative industry. what's it like to launch a beer or beverage brand? Turns out, well, it's really expensive. It is, there's regulation, there's difficulty of distribution, there's all this stuff that sort of plagues the industry and doesn't allow people, creatives, to enter it. And I said, well, let's fix that. Let's go create a recording studio and record label for the beverage industry.
Nice. So what does that look like in practice? How does this work? Say that I'm trying to start my own craft brewing, company, or I'm trying to open my own location. How does working with you look like?
Yeah. So, and it's important distinctions. We're all beverage. So we can produce, beer, but also spirit-based products, wine-based products. We can also produce non-alcoholic, coffee, what have you. But the premise is that our physical facilities, we have 3 of them. 2 of them are in Chicago, 1 of them is in Milwaukee. We can produce products at a very small batch level, like 100 cases at a time. We use them, this isn't, what looks like a brew pub experience. We then can take those products, validate them opposite our audiences in the tasting rooms that we then operate, and we treat that like a focus group. So, public comes into the tasting room, they experience one of 24 unique beverages, and they either like it or they don't. And then we see how their journey transpires while on the project, but ultimately what we're gathering at those moments is really, really valuable data. If we learn that people like your products, we start to syndicate it the same way a record label does. Instead of going to insert radio station here, we're going to Whole Foods, we're going to Walmart, we're going to the beer and wine shops nationwide, and we're trying to further validate your product in those scenarios. As we do that, and as your brand grows, we're able to then scale you to our Milwaukee location, which is a full-blown 70,000 square foot production facility that allows us to take your products and make, from 100 cases at a time to very well millions.
That's really cool. And obviously it's a feedback loop, right? So like you've got your tasting rooms, but that are, giving exposure or giving you data on all of the things that are being tried, but also it's giving exposure to pilot projects as well. So people come in, and I'm sure that you guys, use that a little bit to get the word out about what you do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in the early days, building a reputation for a pilot project was vital. We launched 5 brands right out of the gate when we opened our doors in August of 2019. And while it was vital that these brands were received well, it was also really important that people said, oh, well, this pilot project thing is cool, because then that was validation for every brand that we launched in the future. We've now launched 23. And when we are able to sit down and have a conversation with the likes of Whole Foods or a retailer like that, they're not just accepting the next new brand. They're also saying, well, Pilot made it, so it must be good. To that point, we've had over 59. Yeah, well, I was going to say, to that point, like we've had over, you're good. We've had over 1,500 brands applying to become a part of Pilot Project. So if you as the retailer, the distributor, or even the customer know that brands went through that level, that gauntlet to then get actually produced, and we've only done 23, it's that much more important.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, whereas that it's kind of a yardstick of quality if, not only to consumers, but to, I guess in a certain way to consumers too, because that you would only manufacture this if you knew that it was a hit or that it had potential with people who had actually tasted the product. It's just good business to want to promote something that people are actually enjoying over the other applicants that have tried. This being a marketing podcast, I have to ask, how do you approach, for those brands that you help incubate, how do you approach how that product is ultimately sold? Do you have a say in what they put out there? Do you have standards that you try to give them, best practices that you pass down that they have to go by?
So we have so much influence in the R&D, in the production, and ultimately the distribution of the products themselves, that we try to, as you said, create standards and but then ultimately take a step back and let the brand be the brand, so that we're not creating one homogeneous vehicle for every drink brand that comes through us. That being said, we sort of established these standards of, well, this is kind of a marketplace marketplace business. You're not just selling to your end consumer, right? You're not just trying to build lifetime value with the person that's drinking the product. You're also trying to build lifetime value and build a connection with distributors, the people that are trucking your products all around the country. You're building relationships with retailers, the people that are selling and hopefully hand selling your products when you go sit down at a restaurant or, go to your local supermarket. And so you think about all the different points of connection, all the different ways and levers that someone has to ultimately pull. We try to take that entire funnel and simplify it and say, do these things, based off of your product for your consumer over here. And then over here, think about it this way. We help to sort of shape their narrative so that they're, off running as quickly as they can be.
Completely. So right now, how do most people do you think find out about Pilot Project outside of, going on podcasts and outside of walking by the tap room? How do you think most people find you, and how do you get these new applicants?
So the same thing for us, right? Is we're a marketplace business. We have to attract you, Rob, to come to our tasting room and enjoy a drink or two. But then we have to find the people in all the different pockets of the universe that want to launch the next brand. I found for us, PR is a really big way of doing that, which is thank you for helping to lean into our marketing message, because when you're a business like ours, we're technically first to market. We're the only beverage business or drink brand that's doing what we're doing. And so as a result, there's a chunk of information that has to be communicated. You have to know Pilot Project is this record studio and recording studio and record label for beverage. So that plus plays a huge role in it. My background was in music tech, so I still find the value of paid media to be exceptional. Why? Because not only can I find you, and invite you to our tasting room online, one of the best ways to target people that have entrepreneurial aspirations or aspirations for brand development come from this space is understanding that I can find you online. Of the 23 brands that we've launched, they're not all Chicago or Milwaukee centric. We've launched 5 brands out of California. We've launched a brand out of London, a brand out of Mexico City, and assuredly they have all discovered us through different ways. The last being is that all things considered, this is a small industry. People talk about they tout 10,000 breweries across the United States. And they use that number as if it's this insane, can you believe it? There are 10,000 breweries. Well, think about how many tech companies there are. Think about how many, grocery stores there are. Think about all the different types of businesses. 10,000, all things considered, is not. So the industry is small. Being able to be mindful of our clearest path to building brand awareness within the beverage space is going to the trades versus finding, consumer things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You found, I think that, on the digital side, have you found that any one channel outside of those placements has been effective for you? Like outside of I think the PR placements obviously are most effective, but maybe some, like direct buys and trades and things like that. Have you found anything on the digital side to be especially effective for finding potential new ones?
I mean, we are hyper targeting. So we're finding the top 10, trade platforms and brands there. Who wants to be the next? It's like who wants to be the next top model? Who wants to be the next top beverage entrepreneur? So we're using those mediums. We are also using just paid media at the consumer level. We'll take out meta ads every single month, and they serve 2 purposes. One is drive traffic to the tasting rooms, but then also, hey, look at Pilot Project that's doing this thing. Do you want to do this thing? And so we're trying to maximizing both of those in that outlet. Right now, another space, because we get to have I love being in a CPG brand. I love playing in the brand product development space. As much as I the buzzword of influencing, I found that our micro and nano influencers have become an absolutely instrumental piece to carrying our story. And so same thing, looking at the influencers within the beverage space or the food and beverage space has been paramount in us really trying to find, again, it's the audience is twofold. It's threefold. It's finding new, beverage entrepreneurs, finding consumers to enjoy our drinks on the market. And then lastly is still like, we're still trying to win the hearts of retailers and distributors nationwide. It's a big piece of us too. And so there is important.
Yeah, I think it's got to be part of that. It's sort of one lever boosting the others too. It's like the easiest thing to reach consumers right away, obviously, is to get them into a tap room. But in doing so, hopefully you raise awareness in people who are decision makers or who are going to ask questions about what is Pilot Project? How can I find out more about this? It's that top of funnel, and especially when it comes to choosing your micros and nanos, and like who follows those micros and nanos, and how can I get my messaging in front of the right people, which I feel like is where a lot of people stumble. We've worked with a lot of brands who want to do influencer marketing, who want to do creator marketing or get more UGC, but I think there's often a misstep when it comes to, but who is that content reaching? And if you're not using that content in paid media where you can get hyper targeted, then those who you're choosing to participate in those programs can be or is all the more important. And I think that's the one of the things I would advise anyone, thinking about dipping their toe into influencer marketing. It's not purely about following or, all one size fits all. Do you use, how do you source those partners right now?
Right now, most of it just comes through our marketing team, the agency, that they're just, selecting ones. I do think an important piece of what you just called out is the need for redundancy. So when we're working with influencers or we're building out a remarketing campaign, we're fully recognizing that your lifetime value as a customer, in whatever sense of the word, is going to only get better the more we can interact with you. And so when we're doing, call it influencer campaigns, I don't want to buy one post from an influencer. I want to ensure that I'm building a relationship with the influencer, that I'm becoming a part of their life, so that my story becomes their story, and then they're telling their story over. Yeah. And so to me, it ends up being, and this is, marketing 101, it's test and learn, all the different directions. Then when you find the things that work, so for us, it's when we find the influencers that work, or we find the online trade publication that works, like we are beating it to a pulp. It's hard to say that, and also be like, but be authentic. The reality is that redundancy is authentic. I need to talk to you about this a lot. I want someone to talk to you about this a lot. There's a reason why Viore targets me every single day, 5 times across every platform, is because they know the more I see it, the more I'm inclined to become a customer.
Completely. I couldn't agree more. We do the same thing, and it's about having the flexibility and especially when brands are starting out, to test a bunch of different things, to try a bunch of different, give yourself the ability to learn, like you guys do with your tap rooms. You want a lot of product, you want a lot of content in there so that you can test and learn. But once you find something that works, building those longer term relationships is very, very important. We do the same thing. Usually there's cost savings too with working with someone over a longer period and getting more pieces of content. Those partnerships can be a lot more valuable and cost effective. And now that you know that they work, you can look for, it helps in the outreach going forward, where we'll always send creator decks to people just to be like, hey, do this, don't do this. Here's what we found that works in the past. Here's what doesn't. We want to give them creative freedom, but give them an idea in the direction of where to go. And the more you do it, the more you learn about it, what works.
Basically, I feel like we run into with a lot of our brands when they're talking about their own marketing aspirations is this like analysis of feeling like you're spending money on something that's just being thrown out into the abyss. And my reality for most of them is that understand statistics significance in testing happens a lot sooner than you'd realize. And so you don't have to, you want to drive awareness of XYZ campaign. You have a new product that's launching, and you want to figure out the right method to build exposure for it. Well, you can throw $100 at something online in 4 different pockets and learn quickly. You may not even end up spending the full $100 before you know whether this is a thing to double down on or entirely back off of. So I think the test and learn approach for us has been paramount. Not every influencer is the right influencer for a brand. You want to be able to, the expression of spray and pray is not the right one. You still have to be intentional about it, but you want to make sure that you're starting conversations with people in a number of different ways. All that being said, bringing it back to your original question, is like, how are we building relationships with influencers? Well, right now we are building relationships with influencers. Like, that part is going to be key to our strategy. Otherwise, no one would ever have known that how the Project Wrigley existed as quickly if we hadn't built such thoughtful relationships with, influencers at our Lincoln Square location, such that once Wrigley launched, we were able to, quickly blanket the city of Chicago with authentic content. All of the influencers that we've been talking to for years now.
Yeah, completely. I couldn't agree more. And I do like the point about things learning a lot faster than they used to. I know, one of the reasons why digital is so versatile and so valuable is because you really you need a set number of conversion events before it really kicks into gear. And I know with all of the Andromeda and AI models and everything, it may be like nails on a chalkboard to some of us who have spent our lives really dialing in that targeting, but it is working when it comes to generating those events, that reliable sample size faster. And then it's really about using creative in the best way you can to get that audience. What about the future of Pilot Project? Tell me what's next for you guys. What do you have going on in the next 6 months or so?
We're looking to close fundraise. We just did a fundraise that we're nearly done with in the coming weeks. And then with that fundraise, will allow Pilot to start to build our presence in other parts of the country. It's important to us that our tasting rooms, acting like these testing grounds, these focus groups, it's important to us that we're able to then do that in other parts of the market, validate in other places. So we're going to launch a couple more locations in 2026. We will expand some of our distribution methodologies, and then ultimately just keep hustling.
Nice. Well, thanks so much, Dan. I really appreciate you joining us on Rosman Radio today. If people want to find out more, they can go to pilotprojectbrewing.com. If you're like us and you're in Chicago, go to the new Wrigleyville tap room. It's a blast. And Dan, yeah, thanks again.
Thanks, Rob. Talk to you very soon.